Hello friends, and welcome to part 2, and today we're going to take all the pages that we made, use our tabs, and work on our cover and get this sewn together and decorated. So I know it's long, but use the chapters down below to move through it at your own pace or your own interest. So here's what we're going to need. You will need all your pages, your covers, your tabs, and I am using a piece of cardboard, chipboard, heavy chipboard. Packaging would be great for this. I'm going to use that to create my covers, and I'm just going to cut those out here in a second and show you how I did that. But go ahead and put everything aside except for your covers. If you are not going to make a heavier cover for this tag book, you can skip over this part. It'll help you have a little bit shorter video to watch. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to place them where I have to make the fewest cuts and can use the least amount of material here, because I'm going to use these for this chipboard for other parts of my project later. So keeping as much of it as possible is good. And I'm just going to trace around it. And the reason that I'm tracing is to get it as close to the cover as I possibly can. I'll trim it up later if I've accidentally made it a little bit too large, but this will help me keep the size as close to the original as possible. Now I'm going to take my other cover and put it right up there flush against the other one and do the same thing of just tracing around it, knowing that I can trim it up a little bit later. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And I'm being very precise here, but I will tell you ahead of time that when I cut it out, I wasn't quite as precise. So I ended up having to do a little bit of trimming after I put it in place. No worries. Most things in junk journaling are fixable. So I always say just relax and have fun with it. Be as precise as you want, and know that if it's not as precise as you wanted, we can probably fix it later. So I'm just going to trim around here, and then we'll get on to the next step. So I've got my tags cover and back cover cut out, and they're ready to go. And I'm probably going to do a little dry fit here just to make sure that they at least are generally fine, but it ends up that I will have to do some trimming on them when I get to that point, but couldn't resist, just had to look to see if they were okay. And I'm going to put those and my tag bindings, the little tag strips, off to the side here for a second, because our next step really involves just the pages and prepping them for the binding process. So I'm going to use this Teflon bone folder. I really like them. If you are interested in one and you don't have one, you can find it in my Amazon store, which is linked down below. But the Teflon bone folder is really great because I use it for scoring. I use it for really making a nice sharp crease, and it doesn't leave a mark. The regular plastic bone folders, they will leave a little shiny spot as you rub them. And I don't really like that when I'm getting that crease really crisp. I want it to be look as if I've just run my fingernail down it, but my fingers get sore if I do that. And so I get the best of both worlds. I get a nice crisp edge and I don't leave a mark with the bone folder. So um, I highly recommend them. Now I'm going to use my mini scoreboard here, and you'll see that I'm going to line it up on just a middle mark that I can see the top and the bottom. And I have used a Sharpie pen to mark it, and I think I'm going to show you how I did that because it's getting to be a little faded, and I realized that not everybody is comfortable marking up their boards, but I will tell you that this is a great tip if you were trying to align two pieces, a top and a bottom, where the lines, you're going to go from one line to the other and from one edge to the other, and you want to really be able to see that you have it on the same mark before you score it. I hate scoring things and figuring out later that I have kind of gone whopper jawed on it. So this is my little trick on how to keep myself certain that my alignment is where I want it. So I'm lining it up here. I'm pressing it, the top edge up to the top so that I can keep it nice and square. And then I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm going to go straight down in one nice, gentle, not over pressing, because these papers, some of them are a little fragile. So I want to be gentle with them. You'll see that it makes a mountain fold on one side, and I like to always fold towards that mountain side. That's what the paper wants to do. And so, getting in a line with what the paper wants to do always is helpful, unless you don't want to. So you do it how you want to do it. I'm just showing you how I do. And then I run my bone folder down it, and we're off to the races because I have several of these to do. So I'm going to move on through them as quickly as possible and get them ready for the next step as quick as I can, but still being really pretty precise. This is an important step to be a little precise on. You want to make sure that you are matching up your edges as much as possible. If it's not matching on the edge, make sure that the top matches as much as you can, and we can trim down that side later and it won't make a big deal of difference. So here's where having that line is really helpful, because I can make sure that my top and my bottom are where I want them to be, so I'm getting a nice straight line. And I tend to do them a couple times, even on my heavier pages. I find that using a lighter touch is really helpful. And if you hold it in place and don't move it, you're going to get an even crisper edge by running it down the channel a couple of times. So I'm going to actually speed this next little part up so that you can watch me doing it in case you're wanting to perfect your technique, but not make you sit through all of it. You can see that I am trimming the pages as I go just to kind of get them nice and even. But it's a quick process, but it's one that I just want to be very mindful of while I'm working on it. And you will want to be too. So I wanted to show you the entire process, even if it was a little quicker than I did it in real life. So I'm back and I've got all my pages folded and ready for the next step, which what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of a distressed edge to them. And I'm going to do that just by darkening each of the edges, both inside and out. And it just kind of brings the focus into the center of the page, which is something that I really like, even on pages that I am journaling on. And I'm going to use Distress Oxide in Timber, Scorched Timber, and I'm going to use my little mini blending tool. It helps when you're working on smaller pages like this to just have a little bit smaller blending tool to work with. And I'm going to go around each of those edges. Again, just kind of creating a vignette. That's, I guess, what I would say. You notice the difference between when I rub it back and forth and when I bring the edge. It kind of softens it when I rub it back and forth, and I like that. So as I look at it, I will probably do some of it by keeping it crisp and some of it by rubbing it against the edge to bring that ink a little bit farther into the page. The blending tool really helps you to get that to be softer if that's the look that you like. I kind of mix it up and let it look a little more distressed maybe than some people would like. So pick the technique that you like and use the one that works for you. And if you don't like to use blending tools, but you still want to kind of put an edge on it, you can do direct to paper by picking up the ink pad and actually running it against the edge of your page. And what I am showing you there is that I tend to not want to put a ton of ink down the spine of the two pages, because we're going to be sewing through it and it's going to be bending a lot, and that weakens the fibers that are there. So while I am putting a little bit of ink there, I'm being mindful that I don't oversaturate it and put too much ink so that it will be difficult to get, or not difficult, but it will not cause the fibers to break down and become weak as we use it over the next 30 days as we're journaling in it. I can't wait to start writing in mine. I'm so excited. So this was actually my last page that I am finishing up. I've actually done all the rest of them. So even though I'm taking a little bit longer with it, I was taking my time so that I could show you the process before I finished up. And now all of my pages are done. And you may want to pause and go get your pages done as well so that we're at the same spot. And I think what I'm going to do now is just make sure that I like the order of the pages the way that I have them. Once we get them bound into this book, we're not going to be able to move them back and forth. And I kind of wanted to put mine in a particular order, and you may want to too. So I have them all selected and in the order that I want them in, and I'm just going to kind of do a quick flip through them to make sure that I like that page next to that page. That was kind of what determined the order that I put them in. The insides are always going to be whatever page next to page, because that's how we are doing them. And you could bind them by stacking them inside of each other, but that's not the binding method that I wanted. I wanted to do this tag or tab binding because it allows it to lay flat. So the last step before moving on to working on the binding is just to do a visual of the order that you've selected them in and make a last minute choice. I felt like these colors worked better together, and then that one made a nice transition into that next page. So even though you've done a rough sort on them, always do a last little visual once you have them all in order, just to make sure that you like how they are transitioning one to the other. That will pull you through the book as opposed to making each page seem like its own little standalone element. And this one, while the colors are pretty dramatically different, the cities are done in a really crisp black. And so I think that that color works pretty well. And again, there's some black on this page, the stripes of the music staff. So I'm not making it perfectly transitioned from one to the other, but I like when there's a little bit of crossover between the color palette just to pull the eye on through. A little bit of that yellow from one to the next one really helps here. And then again, the browns are being picked up. Looks nice. A little bit of the green, and that brings us to our back page. And I feel like we have things in a good order now. So we're ready to start putting our tag book together. And I've just laid out here all the things that I'm going to use in this binding process. I have our tabs that we have sewn together. Remember, one side is paper and one side is fabric. If you make them totally out of fabric, you may want to make a different glue choice, but I'll address that in just a second. Because I'm going to be putting paper to paper on everything, this is going to give me my strongest bond. So I have my tabs, I have my covers, and my cover board. It's just heavy chipboard. I suggested that you make it out of a cereal box or some packaging like that. I am going to use an all but a scrapbooking pokey tool. I think that's what they're officially called. Um, Let me grab mine. This is the Tim Holtz version. I have used it for years and years, and I love it, and I use it when I'm doing other binding. This one has a graduated um, point to it, so that as you go deeper into it, when you're piercing with it, it will make the hole a little bit bigger, and this one is straight all the way up. So when I'm doing binding for a book project, I tend to use an awl. It just gives me a little bit more flexibility on this whole size that I'm creating. You're going to need a pencil. You will want your pages that you have created, and you'll want to put them in a stack. And you may even want to take a binding clip and put them together. That'll just kind of make things easier. I'll grab one of those here in a second. And then you're going to want to make a thread choice. And in this case, I'm going to make my choice totally based on aesthetics and what look I want. So I'm going to put this on here, and I'm going to look to see I've selected things that are all in the color range of what we're doing, but I'm going to look and see what is going to show up as it goes over this binding tab. And although this one would show up really well, it's a little too bright for me. All of these, I'm not going to use this one either. This is my nylon thread that I use when I'm sewing signatures in. I so rarely get to pick something because it's pretty, so I'm going to eliminate this one because it's not particularly pretty, but it does a great job in binding, and it is very, very, very strong. So your books hold together really well. So the rest of these, obviously, any of these are going to look great. I think this one will, it's a little bright in the pink, and okay, excuse me for sneezing. Um, I I think any of these three are going to look great. I am leaning towards one of these two, and I love this green. I also love this gray because it's a little, these are Sue Spargo colors. In case you're wondering, the green is EZ33, and this one is EZ04. But this one, let's see what the size is on it. It's a pearl number 3, which means it's a little bit thicker. And I think that could be kind of fun as it's going across the binding because it's going to show up just a little bit more. So for that reason, I'm going to choose this one. So now I have all my choices except for glue, and I told you I would address the glue choice. If you have chosen to go with a fabric binding, then I suggest that you use Fabrifix as your glue of choice for at least putting your binding onto your, attaching it to your covers, okay? That will make a huge difference. And honestly, I just realized that I'm going to show you putting these covers on, and there's going to be a little bit of the tab that goes in between here and here, right? That's going to make it really good and sturdy, but there isn't enough of it that I'm going to worry about using this for here, because who has time for mixing their glues when we're in that quick of a situation? But if you have just used fabric, then your best choice is going to be the Fabrifix. Okay, so let me clear things off and we'll get started. We are so close to getting to the fun part. Okay, so I've gotten everything except what we need for this first step cleared away, and we have settled on our page order. So I'm going to put a clamp up here and a clamp down here. Clamps are, in my estimation, a huge necessity when we are doing binding. But you want to make sure you've got everything level as you clamp them. And I'm noticing that I don't have my pages leveled this way. Oh, I do have one that's kind of shorter. That makes sense. But I would rather have the short part of it on the bottom rather than the top, because that's going to throw off all of this. So these are things that we just check as we're getting to this step. I made the choice to make this one shorter because it was on a piece of paper that was shorter. No worries about that. Now I have this flush, and everything except for this one page that was shorter. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my tab in place. And I want to, when I glue, I'm going to want to allow for expansion, but right now I'm only doing marking, so it's not important. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to run it down here. And if you open it up and see that you did not get a good mark, you can come back and mark it with, but I can see those really pretty well. So I've got that there, and then I just want to decide where the other two are going to be. And I'm eyeballing this, but by all means, kind of check. I think I've got about 1.25 inches here in between. That's going to be my, but I want to leave space at the bottom and at the top. Make sense? So I'm going to mark here, and I'm going to mark here. Okay, there's those two. Then I'm going to come here, and I'm going to come up about 1.25 inches from this mark, and I'm going to mark here, and I'm going to mark here. Okay? Now, there's many ways that you could do this. I will tell you that I have found it's worth a little bit of extra effort to take them one at a time. And you can see where your marks are. Top, bottom, top, bottom, top, bottom. But I don't want to guess on those. So I'm going to turn them inside out, pierce each one. And now my page order really does matter. So I'm going to pierce them, then I'm going to put them in the order that they were, and I'm going to come back. This one's going to be a little bit harder to see. You may see my head because I'm coming in here, piercing, piercing. This is the difficulty in seeing it is not because pencil is hard to see on this, it's because any marking looks like another city that I need to avoid. Okay, here's here. And let's see if I can find that bottom one. There it is. It's right there. Okay, so I've got, see, it would have been really easy to see on this other side, but I chose to use the darker one out there. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go through and pierce all of these, and then I'll be back, okay? Each of the folds of each of my page pairs, and I'm going to set them to the side here. And oops, that was backwards. I turned that inside out. I have my needle threaded with my thread, and I'm going to go up. I'm going to do this initial stitching just directly on here. I'm not going to worry about trying to keep the tabs in place. That's going to get easier as we go along. So I'm going to go, it's just a running stitch. I want to go up, down, up, down. I'm creating a place for the tab to go through right here. Okay. But trying to keep that in place when we're not gluing it right now is kind of, it's a crazy maker. So I'm going to pull this all the way through. Not all the way through. I'm going to pull it down to where I just have a little bit left to tie with. There we go. Just a little bit. Now I'm going to go up. And honestly, I suggest that you don't have as long of a thread when you're doing this as I'm using. I'm doing it because I have a hard time on camera getting my needle threaded, and I don't want to spend your time waiting for me to do that. So you may be spending your time watching me untangle, which may be just as not fun as so here we go. So you're going to have 2 inside stitches and 3 outside stitches. Those are for holding our tabs when we get to the tab placement. The other reason that I'm really kind of liking this thicker binding thread, it's embroidery thread is what it is, but because we are going to tie it here on the inside, I'm going to come up here and tie it up here. I'm not going to tie it super tight, but kind of tight. And what is the difference, you say, between super tight and kind of tight? Well, I'm going to tie it until it kind of snaps there, and then I'm going to grab a pair of opposable tweezers, and because I need another set of hands, and then I'm going to tie this in. So I did right over left, now I'm doing left over right. It just looks like a big pile of thread right there, but hopefully yours will not be as, and I can pull those out, tighten it down, and it's got a little play in it because we may want to slide something in here, an extra set of pages. Who knows what we're going to come up with? I don't even know what I'm going to come up with, but I'm leaving it as an option. I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to fold this one and put it face down over here. Okay, I'm going to put my clip on top of it to hold it down. There are my tabs. I've now got, and I'm going to take the next one, and because I did that one at the top, I'm going to start at the bottom on this one and go up and down. I'm going to pull it on through, and if you don't want to rip this spine area, I suggest you pull it in the direction or in line with the spine. If you, gosh, Jan, I want to go from, did I do that right? It's good for you to see that I don't do it right all the time either. Oh my goodness. Jan. Okay. Still going to go in line with the spine. I confused myself there for a minute. I apologize. On the inside, I want 2 stitches. On the outside, I want 3. I was confusing myself as whether I was starting on the inside or the outside. So we're going to go up. Pulling it in line with the spine. Go towards the outside. You can see why having an extra long thread can be not as conducive to easy stitching. I'm going to pull it in line with the spine. Check to make sure that it's fairly tight there. Now I'm going to do always try to go right over left and then left over right, because that gives a square knot, and a square knot will not untie itself. If you do right over right, right over left, right over left, it has the potential for untying. So I'm going to put my little tweezers in there to hold it. Then I'm going to go left over right. My fingers do not want to work on camera today. That is one of the downsides to having Parkinson's, is that our fingers don't always do what we expect them to do. Okay, so I've got 2 done, and I'm going to put that one over here, and I'm going to do one more just to try and show you that I can, and then I will go off camera and get all of these done so you don't have to watch me. But I thought maybe watching me do one that is a little bit like watching, that is a little more fragile. This is that paper that we made, and on this one I'm going to start in the middle. So I'm making them kind of alternatively at the top, the bottom, and the middle, so that I'm not getting it particularly bulky at either the top, the bottom, or the middle, so that my book isn't quite so wonky. Going to go up and down. That. Then we're going to go towards the outside. Pull it through, pull it towards, in line with the spine. I left a little too much for time, so I'll take this opportunity to tighten it up a little bit, because we want the outside and the inside tension to be fairly similar. So I'll do that. Pull this one in line with the spine, and we'll come back in. There we go. And just pulling it in line with the spine. Working with fragile paper takes a little extra care, but oh my goodness, I love how awesome it looks next to the other pages. Now, here's the little bit of difference. Instead of just going down here and coming up, I'm going to come all the way to the bottom, come up, I'm going to go down, nice and taut. And here is an opportunity for us to give it a little extra structural assistance. So I've got my 2 arms on either side, and I'm going to tie them over that top thread, if that makes sense, just to give it a little extra structure. I want to make sure it's nice and flat. And then I'm going to bring this in, tie it over again. Slip that out, tighten it just a little extra, and snip our threads. We can go back and make those smaller if we like. But there we have our first 3 pages, top, bottom, and middle. I already know that that's going to annoy me, so I'm just going to snip those right now. And I'm going to go off camera and stitch the remainder of these following the same pattern of stitching top with a tie for the top, a tie for the bottom, and a tie for the middle. Okay? So there we go. That is how we are going to prepare these, and then we'll work on getting our tabs inserted, okay? So I'm going to put these over here. I'll be right back. I don't want to make you sit through me doing all of the stitching. So I'm just about to finish sewing making my little tab alignment stitches on my pages, and I remembered that there were two things that I wanted to tell you while you're still in this process. One is, if you choose to use a thicker thread with your needle, you may find you'll want to use as large an eye as possible, like a tapestry needle or something like that. But the one that I had right here at hand was a little bit too small. I could get it through, but it was fraying it a little bit. So let me tell you my secret to getting a thicker thread to go through a smaller needle, and that is to take just a tiny drop of your white or clear drying glue. I use this one because it dries really, really, really fast. I just put a drop on it, squeeze and pinch so that I flatten out the threads, and they all kind of become a self-threading little hard but thin thing that will go right through the eye of your needle. So that's one thing I wanted to tell you in case you were having any trouble with that. And secondly, I had mentioned that I may want to do one or two of them with some extra pages in them. And as I came to this one, I remembered that this was the one that I wanted to do it in so that I could maybe do a little more decoration. This is a piece of Braille paper and would be a little bumpy to write on, but I didn't want to lose the journaling space. So what I'm going to do is I've taken a couple of scraps of tea-dyed paper, and I'm going to grab my tear ruler, if I can get to it. Should have had that at hand. And I want them to be no taller than here to here. So we can measure that. That height that you don't want to go beyond is probably about 5.5, so that you can bring it up a little bit from the bottom and still have, so 5.5 or 5 3/4 will get you what you need. And then we need a piece that is, I'm going to say, about 6 1/4 inches long. So I have already done a little stamping on here that I wanted to be there on my page. So I've got those, and I'm just going to tear these ends because I kind of like that decal look when we have that decal look. Just that torn edge, just, it looks old world to me. So then I'm going to put it in here and find where my fold is going to be. The other thing I want to make sure that I'm doing is leaving room for all 3 tabs to get to it, okay? So now that I've done that, I can turn it back around, use my tear ruler again, and match up the length on the other side. I hope that made total sense. I mean, I was just using scraps, so mine are not totally as tall as you may want yours, but I did measure, and all 3 of my binding sets are going to fit nicely into that. So I'm going to put it in place and grab a couple of clips just to hold it in place while I do the binding. Now you could just go and stitch this directly in. And that would be totally fine. The other thing that you could do is just go ahead with your binding the way that it is and then put some folded sheets in. It's just that these are not quite tight enough to hold, and it would limit how high it could be. So we can get a little bit taller sheets by doing it this way. So I would suggest either sewing it directly on your sewing machine, just stitch in the ditch, or go ahead and bind it in the other tabs. I'm going to stitch. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've just stitched right down the center. I can take my clips off. And rather than visually hunting for those holes, I'm just going to line up my next page and use it to poke my binding holes in. Okay, there we go. That one back here so I stay in order. Okay, so now I've got my binding holes back, and I can go right back to getting these ready to put the tabs on. Okay, I'll be back as soon as I finish the last of these up, and we'll go on to the next step. So for this next step, you need to have completed doing all of your stitching on your pages. You're going to want to pull out your cover, your back cover, and if you have decided to use a little bit of like a cereal box or something like that, get that cut to fit your pages. And you're going to need your tabs. In addition, you're going to want your glue, and you're probably going to need some scissors. If you have not done your stitching yet and you want to get that done, pause and go get that done, and then come back in and pick up where we are in the process. We're going to get the book put together, and then I'm going to show you how to do a few little decorations and give you a flip through of my final project. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is insert our tabs, and I start at the back and work towards the front. And I tend to, oh, I knew I had the scissors out here for a reason. To help you get them through, do a little, just cut off a little bit on either side. That'll help them go into your stitched slots a little easier. And I'm going to do all of these that are at the top first, just slide them down. And I leave a little bit of space here because we're going to have plenty of space on here for all of them once we're done. I'm going to do this whole first line together, get the second line started with you, and then I'll do that off camera so you don't have to sit and watch me slide all my pages on. But I want you to be really comfortable with the process before I go do it off camera. I hope you're having fun. A few of you have started showing me the pages that you've been making, and I'm super excited to see how they work into this tabbed book. Okay, I'm having a little struggle, so I'm just going to trim the front of this a little bit. It had started to fray. If it can happen to me, if it can go wrong, it'll probably go wrong on my project. So this is one of the reasons that I love doing this kind of start to finish with you, so that I can tell you what I did to overcome any obstacle that I might have. And most of you don't have fumble fingers like I do, so you'll have a much easier um, path to getting these all loaded than I am, which is the other reason I'm going to do most of it off camera for you, so that you don't have to watch the painful way my fingers don't want to cooperate with our process here. But it's really easy, guys. Don't be intimidated at all. If you think that it's looks hard, it's because for me, I don't know if you know this, but I have Parkinson's, and my brain will tell my fingers to do something, and they kind of talk back and go, we don't want to. So I have to be really concentrating and exaggerated with my motions, and you will not have to do that. Um, but if you have something that causes you to have a little bit of a struggle, um, give yourself permission to take the time to do it the way you want to do it. Guys, we want to be a reflection of our creative um, God, because He has made us all in His image. We all have a creative bone in our body. They sometimes are expressed differently in each of us, and that's what makes it needful for each of us to bring our gifts to the table, because my gift isn't yours and yours isn't mine, and I will learn from you, and hopefully you will learn from me. But in that process, we are all being a reflection of God in the world around us. And you know what? Sometimes our friends and families don't get that. And so they're not as appreciative of the way we use our gift as our Heavenly Father is. And you know what? Part of the creative process is allowing ourselves to be a reflection of our God, who is the ultimate creative. And He has put that into each of us with different um, variations, and but we all have a creative bone in our body, and it's up to us to kind of find it and use it for His glory and as a way of reflecting Him to the world. So even if your friends or family don't totally get the whole creative part of you, that's okay, because you're not doing it for them. Although you may be giving them a gift of something that you have created, you are doing it as an offering to the Lord. And so He's going to be pleased with your gift, whether it takes you the same amount of time as it takes me, or it takes you less time, or it takes more time. As long as you give Him the best that you have, He is going to receive your gift with the intention that you created it with. And He's going to find joy in the process of you creating to honor Him. He'll also find joy in the process of you spending time in His Word. And that's what I'm really excited about, is that this is going to augment that time that we spend in the Word. It's going to be a place for us to record what we learn and be able to keep track of those things in a way that we can go back and bring them to mind again later. So I'm going to go finish putting my tabs in here, and then I'll show you what the next step is, okay? Go ahead and get your tabs in so that you're ready to go with me as well. So I have all three of my tabs inserted into my stitching, and I want to kind of space them out just a little bit, not a huge amount, but I just want, and I can do that. Really, all I have to do is kind of move the front tab, the front page, a little bit to the right on the top and the bottom and the middle. And I can move the back page a little to the left, top, bottom, and middle. And then once we have the covers on, we can spread out the other pages. We don't need a lot of extra space in here. If you were going to use this not so much for journaling, but for really decorating it up, you would want to give a little extra space between each of the pages. But really and truly, we're not going to do a huge amount of decorations because I want to have maximum journaling space in here. But for it to lay pretty and do all the things that we want it to do, this binding style allows it to lay flat. Isn't that cool? I chose this one because we're writing, having it lay flat instead of fussing about it being difficult to deal with is helpful. Okay, so the way that we're going to, go ahead and start putting our covers on. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and take these and bend them to 90 degrees. And I just do that by doing a little smush. Okay, and I'm going to glue it to begin with. I'm going to glue each of these tabs to that front page. Okay, now if you are not doing the if you're not using this, then you'll move right on to the next step, which is adding your heavier stock cover. But I'm just going to put these on for right now. Okay, give them just a second to get in there. Okay, and now I am going to glue this right over those and make this my cover. Okay, does that make sense? Everybody on board with that? Okay, so I'm going to do that, putting my glue on here, and I'm going to glue it really generously because I want it to be a really strong hold. I'm using art glitter glue. It will grab the cloth just fine. But if you're nervous at all, grab your 3-in-1 or your Fabri-Tac or whatever you have that you like using with cloth. Okay, so I'm going to line this up right here with that inside, and I can trim it back. In fact, I'll do that right now because it's going to be easier than when I have the other one on as well. So I'm just going to do this, just trim it to meet the actual size of my first page. And if I need to do redo a little bit of my darkening, and go ahead and darken that edge because I'm using something that's going to show up as white. So I'm going to go ahead and just get that edge done. That's good. And now I'm going to add my cover. Okay, so I'm going to put glue on here. I want to always be extending an invitation to those of you that are just joining us to go back and watch how we got to this point by watching the tag book part 1 project. And if you are wanting to join us by using the printable kit, you can still register using the link provided below. Love for you to do that. We're going to be having so much fun in the Facebook group, and there'll be other fun little things that are going on there, and you get the printables and you get first access to the add-on kits. So there's a lot of perks to being part of the class. Okay, so there we are. We have the cover. It opens to our first page. Now let's do the back cover. And here's where I want to make sure that I've allowed that little bit of space. Okay, and now I'm going to just do exactly what I did before. Going to fold that over and smush it down. I should have smushed these before I started, so I'm going to do that. And all I'm doing is putting a little right angle bin in that tab. I bet that makes perfect sense to everybody why we would do that. It just makes it easier and helps them grab pretty quickly. Going to do this last one. We're going to add our back packaging base. By packaging, I'm using just a really thin piece of cardstock, of cardboard, or heavy cardstock would do. Just something to give a little bit of substance to your cover. And another really good weight that you could use is something out of your kitchen pantry or that you're about to throw in the trash. I'm going to give that a nice little press, and I'm going to see if I need to trim down anything to make them match. There we go. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just do the edges here. And I figured out it was easier to do it this way. I think that's, here's I'm using scorched timber. And it's easier if I do this before I put it on because I'm not fighting with those tabs. So I'm going to just go around, all the way around the back cover. I love that pheasant. He is just majestic, isn't he? Okay, so let's go ahead and put this on, and we will have the construction done. Then I want to show you what I'm going to do on a couple of pages, and then leave you to move about the country, to have fun, get your tag books put together, and then please, 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 in any of your social medias, please, where you are posting about them, please tag me. I would really like to see what you have created. I want to see your extra pages. I want to see how well this process worked for you, if it did, or have you tell me what we could do to make it better. I'm going to open this up and just press it down a little bit, give it a little extra time for being, and there we have it. We are totally, it's ready to go. Here's our little section with the extra pages. I'm loving that. You could do many of them that way if you wanted extra journaling. I think this will be probably plenty for me, but I did want to have some extra pages, particularly because this page that I created on Braille, which I really loved because it's very tactile and it'll be really pretty when I decorate up on it. But it might be a little bumpy for writing, so I thought maybe putting some extra pages in here would be helpful. Let me get everything cleared away and I'll come back and we'll start decorating. So I've pulled out a few little things that I think I might want to use for this page. I'm going to work on the cover of this little page set because it's got so much color to it and texture to it, and I think it'll just be gorgeous to add to it. Here are the things that I think I'm going to work with. I may work with some or all of them, or I'm not going to lie, I may have to go dig a little bit and find something else, but in looking at it, I thought these would be really fun and work well together. So I have pulled this little bit larger piece. I'm going to use a little bit of this paper. I'm going to go ahead and tear that off. I'm going to use my tear ruler on that. And I've pulled out a label and another little label that I didn't do a very good job of cutting out, so I won't be distracted. I'll just go ahead and trim that up. So here's what I'm going to do. Again, I'm going to just create some little clusters on these pages because for the most part, I want to leave as much journaling space as possible. So when we decorate over in our journal, we're going to have a little bit more freedom to add envelopes and tags and little pockets for things and all of that. But for this, I'm just going to do a few little clusters. And clusters are so fun because they give us a way to kind of practice our collaging techniques without having too much stress to go along with it. So I'm going to just take off these edges, although I'm going to leave that top one on because I like that kind of watermark that's on there. And then I'm going to try and lay this out and see if it is visually, see, that's a little bit big. Don't want to cover the whole page. So I'm going to go there. And I think that I'm not even going to want all of that. So which one am I going to want? Let's see. Do I want that one? Kind of like that. But we'll audition them both. Kind of like this one. Okay, so for now we'll think about that. Might just grab a little bit of this cheesecloth. Doesn't add much bulk, but it'll help kind of set that off a little bit. So I'm thinking about that there. Then I have these two labels, and this could kind of tie it all together. And then do I even want this one? I actually kind of think that gets a little busy. What do you think? Wish I could hear you through the camera. But I think that is going to be a nice little cluster that's going to be visually appealing, but not take away from the journaling that we have. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to grab my little dauber and I want to put a little bit of ink around the edges, if I can do that without tearing it too badly. This is a really old page, so I have to be a little gentle with it. Going to add some glue. And guys, this is where you just let go and let your imagination go wild and have fun. There are no mistakes here. There are preferences, and that's all that I'm doing is I'm seeing what I prefer together. But if I had gone ahead and put that other label down, you know what? That wouldn't have been a mistake. That would have been another alternative. Do you like how I take the stress out of needing to be perfect? Oh, totally forgot. Wanted to put a little extra glue down here for little fabric swatch. And put a little on it after it's down so it has its own glue to hold it. Now I'm going to put this down here. Give it a good press. Going to go around here as well. And put this little label on there. Make sure I get it set up the right way. And here is just a little design tip. When you're adding something like this, don't leave open space in here. Let them overlap each of the different elements if you can. The reason being is that's called captured space, and it gives a little bit of chaos to the eye. That's just a design tip. It is not a rule. It is something that you may want to break because you're going to intentionally put a word in there or something. But for the most part, if you want this all to be seen as one element, keep them all touching or overlapping. That will help it work better together. So let's move to another page. That's it. That's all I'm doing for this page. See, it's thin. I can write on it and there's no bulk to it. These pages are going to lie flat. Remember, I told you that that was one of the benefits of doing this kind of binding. Let's look. What should we do? This one I don't want to do anything on. I'm going to only decorate the front of a page set for this reason. The insides, we're going to want as much space as possible, and the backs will make it difficult when you're writing on them. So if we just kind of do an introductory, and I'm not even going to do all of them. You'll see I'm going to do a couple here with you, and then I'm going to actually wait. You could do something here. This is kind of unexpected, but you could take a stencil, because this will add no bulk, and I'm using some dye ink that's still left on this brush, and I'm just going to do a little stenciling, and I'm not even going to take it all the way over to the edge so that I don't have any harsh lines from it. So you could do that on a couple of the pages just to give it a little extra visual. You could do that on any page. You could do that on any page. You could do that on an inside page. You could do it on an outside page. I'm just have determined that for mine, I'm going to leave the insides and the back side of the page groupings clean. And then on one or two more, I'm going to do a little bit of adding some little goodies on here. But you know what? I'm going to give this one a little visual layering with this as well. I'm going to put some things on top of it, but I think it'll be fun to have that little background added there. So I'm going to do that. And then I am going to grab you know what, maybe a little piece of this. Let's just see if we like it or not. I really think we need to pull out some of that color. So let me see what I have in my things I can pull from. Now, I don't want to do this because, although it's the right color, because it's the same basic paper as I had. I think I had, if I remember correctly, I had some Braille paper that was more this color. And that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to do a little tearing of it. I'm going to get a different tear ruler. These are wonderful. They have lots of different edges, and I like this one because this one's a little more subtle than the one I had pulled out. So I'm going to, you see how this one is a little more raggedy and this one is a little more subtle. It's more of a decollage. So I'm going to do that. I may leave that a little bit larger. And let's see, if we put that on here, that's going to be fun. That would be good. Let me grab our box of goodies here and let's see what we might want to add. Do you want to dig with me? We have this cute little bird. Okay, you know what? That is really fun. That is really fun. What could we add to that? Do we want to add? No, that's still the. Do we want to add a little button? Decisions. Do we need a little piece of this lace coming in here? That would be pretty behind a button, wouldn't it? That would be fun, but I don't want a button on there. Okay, I'm looking. There's going to be something really perfect. At least in my head, there's something really perfect. There's a little label. Oh, I like that. Now I might, you know what, here's the thing about using printables. It's not a problem to print them again. So if I decide that I didn't like this one made a little bit shorter, but I think I'm going to. I'm going to like that. And then where's my label? I think that's fun. And then later I can come back and stamp whatever maybe the topic is that I cover on these pages. Again, guys, I am keeping all of this very minimalistic. And for me, that's not my normal style. I will decorate it to within an inch of its life normally. But I have kind of bought into the idea that I want this to have fairly minimal additions to its design. That I've created visual texture on both the created pages and on the printable pages that I've done. There's plenty of visual interest to be had there. So I'm not going to worry that this needs decor to hold my attention. The other thing that is true about this is I'm making this for me. So you decide what level of decoration you want. If you want to put something on every page, by all means, please do that. Okay? There are no shoulds and no rules. This is your project. Okay? So have freedom as you are working on this project. Just enjoy it, guys. And then please share it. Because, when you show me that you have decorated every page, there's a very good chance that it's going to talk me into thinking that okay, I have a little bit of an idea going around here. I'm going to put this here. Got everything overlapped so far. And then what if I put the label up here? Do we like it up there or do we want it down here? Oh, I'm just such a traditional girl. I kind of want it down there. It's okay. It's all okay. It's just what we want, right? So I'm going to put this down here. I'm going to use that to add a little topic label. Okay, so what else do I want to do? I think I'll do this one that is a printable. And do I want to use those mushrooms? I think that would be fun. That would be very fun. And let's see. I think those little leaves that kind of tie the green in would be good. Let's find another little, maybe a little book page that we can put behind that. This is a book page from a very fun book that I got on eBay. This is called Smith's 20th Century Interest Tables. And I love numbers almost as much as I love alphabets and letters. But this is an old interest table that people in banking used to use to determine how much your compound or daily interest rates would be. And so it's just numbers. And I found one. There are actuarial tables. There's all kinds of number tables available out there, but I chose this one because A, it wasn't super expensive, and B, because I liked the size of it. The other ones were kind of expensive, and because they were so large. And I could use a page from this on just about everything I did, and it still would have pages left in it. So I'm set for number tables now. I'm going to move those out of the way. And I may grab a smaller mushroom. I don't know, but I love that deer too. See, this is why I didn't want to have too many options. Oh, look at that little deer. Okay, we're going with the deer. We're going with the deer. What about using this little label? What do we think about that? No, that's too dominant. Nope, not gonna do it. I'm still looking for a mushroom that I might want. I don't know with the deer if the mushroom works as well, but I want to use the deer. Although that just alone right there would be really cute. Okay, I'm going to keep looking. What if we did the deer and a little bit of ribbon to pull out that color? Okay, let's try that. We have nothing but time here, right? So I'm going to get a little bit of that. Let's just audition it. I'm going to let that come off of there just a little bit. And maybe just run that down right there. I like that. Okay. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. Okay. We're moving that out of the way because we're not using that. We're not using that. May still want to come to that. Okay, did you notice that I had those numbers? Or did you think I had those numbers upside down? I did. Just going to put this down. Okay. This is why I keep things within reach on my desk that I know are my go-to things. These are itty bitty little buttons, so they're not going to add a lot of bulk, but they're going to pack a powerful punch on top of this ribbon. I think that's going to be really cute. Okay, let's put that down. Okay, I just about put it down upside down. I heard you. I heard you screaming at me. Okay, there we go. Then we're going to put this down here. Do we want that underneath it? I think that needs to be a little shorter. Pop. Oh, look at that cute little deer. Okay, we're getting there. Let's put our little deer down. Down just a little bit. Then let's put our ribbon on. You could use hot glue for this if you wanted for the ribbon, but this glue, the art glitter glue, is going to work just fine. Put it there, and then I'm going, I need to get my tweezers out. And put 3 little, 1, 2, 3. Then I'm going to grab, I think I'm going to grab them with this. One. It's kind of a dual method here. It's easier to get them out of there with my hands, but it's easier to put them on. 2. And here's 3. Okay. Got those lined up pretty good. Give them a little press. And there we have it. And honestly, that's all I'm going to do until you all convince me that I need to do more. Because I just want this to be really focused on my journaling. It'll be, and if after I've done my journaling, I want to add more, then it will be very easy to go back and add a little bit of additional visual decoration, either through stenciling or through doing little clusters like this. So here we are. We are done. One thing that you could do, I'm just thinking of it now, is that if you printed 2 of your covers, then you could cut this out and pop it up so that it has a little bit of gravitas, if you will. But there it is. We have our books done, ready, and they're small enough that they're going to slide right into our journal really nicely. I may put mine in the back pocket of mine so that I can easily get it in and out. So let's just find our little bit of journaling, little bit of decorating that we did. There's our little deer. Here's our little bird. And there's our leaf. Love it. And then, of course, our little sheaves of wheat that we have stenciled on there. So guys, that's it. That is this project completed. I will be back to share the beginning stages of creating our larger project very soon. I will also be back to let you know that the add-on kits are available. So you will want to be watching for that. If you have not subscribed yet, if you're new here, please subscribe. That's the best way to get notifications that you there's a new video for you to watch. And thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I look forward to seeing you in the Facebook group for 30 days of gratitude, if you are going to be participating in the devotional aspect of this project. And if you haven't signed up yet, it's still available for you. So use the link down in the description below. I'll see you soon. In the meantime, be blessed, be well, be creative.